This is where we learn about leadership.
Yes, absolutely.
It's,
Huge. In fact, going live, like I had no idea how much this would teach me
yeah,
about leadership. But one of my greatest weaknesses, for those who are close to me, know that it is I grew up with almost zero diplomacy skills
okay.
whatsoever. And as I stepped into this podcast, in my 30s, I still had no diplomacy skills. Right. So I had a guest one time call Gen Z out as the problem of the world. And as a Papa Bear, I wanted to destroy her for that moment of instinct. Like, who are you and why do you think that you know everything? And I had to like calm myself down and think, okay, how do I address this right without crushing this? Because I don't want to crush the person, but my instinct, like was going to come out. But when we're live, we know we've got an audience. There's a little bit of an extra buffer that makes your brain stop and your mouth stop and think.
Mhm.
So yes, this is a huge opportunity for leadership. Let's start with that. What leadership skills has podcasting helped you refine and develop?
To pause before those, impulsivity of thinking your judgmental or analytical mind is correct, and taking a pause to actually listen to what the person was trying to articulate, and then regulating my emotions so that I can come back with a response. Yet, being live in podcasts, mine aren't live, they're behind, like they're recorded because the space that I provide is honesty. So sometimes people are very transparent and honest, yet it's not something they want live with people. So I don't want to, disrupt their healing process with the gift that I provide. Yet that leadership of really pausing and not thinking I know it all. And that has been a big thing with the impulsivity because it's instinctual. You want to pounce on something and it's like, but wait, do I have all the information? And did I actually listen to the person that's in front of me?
Whew. See, that's huge, and that was something that I had some questions about with relation to the healing work that you do. Right, I saw your framework, and I was like, okay, feeling, processing, integration, and releasing, and I was like, that's fantastic. Oh, right. I was like, this is a great formula. And then I was reading the rest, and it talks about transforming your reactions, empowering your biology, and living a life fulfilled, remembering to be kind to yourself. So there was some elements. It's like, okay, somebody who's ready to live a fulfilled life um, may already be past some of those basic. I shouldn't say past, but may already have developed strengths around some of those components. Whereas some people are going to come in with that framework for the first time. But I saw that framework and I was like, that resonates with so many principles that I've learned. I was like, I can't wait to dive in deeper with you. Again, we're gonna cut for a break, but before we do, and before we talk about the resources, I feel inspired by you to talk about that framework first. So, do you mind sharing more about that?
In a world where we're told not to feel and we are distracted by numbing and, disassociating and blaming, the healing is in feeling and to feel your authentic emotions. And when you're going to feel your authentic emotions, they're going to be information that's going to come up that you may not want to integrate in you because you have a belief or a mask of an identity that it's going to conflict with. Where if you're not feeling those emotions, you're not able to get to your authentic self, which is really just connecting back into self, your vulnerability. So the crux is really having an honest space to be able to feel and not allow your analytical and judgment mind stop that charge because it goes against whatever the identity you've created for yourself. And in a world where we're not allowed to make mistakes, so if we make a mistake, then what is that about our identity? Yet once you allow yourself to feel through, that's where you can be a much more authentic leader, that you can allow yourself to be in the human side of it not just robotic and mindset and also spiritual by bypassing. It's really allowing there to be a realness in there so that change can come from the inside out, not from trying to make it fit in the outside. And the basic of that is you have to understand your nervous system. If you don't understand your nervous system, you don't understand your triggers. You don't understand why when you're dysregulated or you're in the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, and
Huge.
you're reaching out for something. So show
I
me.
had to. I had to grab this book because you honored something that I haven't articulated ever before, but it's one of my absolute favorite books. So this book by Michael Gerber, The E Myth, right? This book, when you listen to the audio and you hear the story that he talks about, you can hear the care, the compassion, and the feeling in what he's teaching. The book is extremely cerebral. It's all about procedures, resources, and templates if you're not paying attention to the feeling. But I've been wondering, and he called it. He didn't call it the entrepreneur myth. He called it the E myth. And I always speculate that this is about the emotional intelligence
Mhm,
myth. That it's but it applies to both. So it's kind of like that phrase from the Bible, the "I am"
mhm.
aspect, and try. You can't really teach somebody what that means. That's something that over time you start to discover the depth and breadth and perspectives. So you just helped me unlock it because I usually teach people about the logistics of the e-myth. And you're right, the underlying reality, the more powerful aspect is, are you showing up, caring about the people that you're working with, taking good care of them? And yes, these resources help with that process, but the focus is on the people. Talk to me about processing. What does that mean to you?
Processing means, again, feeling your authentic emotions, having the accountability to see your actions, to see how you're treating yourself, because everything comes from the inside out. We can all of a sudden scold our children. And then if there's a stranger, we have the nicest demeanor with them. And then your children will call you out like, why were you treating me this way? But you're all pleasant with this stranger and putting on like a facade.
Mm,
Yet the more that you can understand everything's coming from the inside out, and those that are very subjective and close to you bring out those emotions and temperament. And if you haven't learned to befriend them, then you're treating the closest people probably like garbage. And the strangers, you're presenting this mask of adore me and see how kind and precious I am. Yet you're not really living it, you're not embodying it. And I have two Padwins. I don't know if you're a Star Wars fan, yet um, the Jedi that I am, the Padwins come and my twins call me out all the time. Like, you just did this and now you're acting this way. And it's like, okay, let me be accountable for my emotions and articulate why I reacted this way and that I'm still learning and growing so that you can learn also in your big emotions what that looks like in the modeling process. Because the thing with healing, in my experience, I came to, this space 10 years ago because I had lesions in my brain and my brainstem and cerebellum. So I had a front seat with the nervous system and seeing all the traumas and all this stuff. So I had this wisdom intelligence, yet to embody it, oh my gosh. And in the parenting role, I can be all calm and joyful in other spaces. In my parenting role, it unearths all my work. And I have to have the accountability to want to face it and to acknowledge when I've made mistakes, acknowledge that I'm human, acknowledge where some of the things that they're doing, I just don't want to see about myself because I was triggered as a child or I was othered or berated or whatever that is.
it's
Yet
huge.
again, that's my feeling emotions that need to come up so that they don't trigger me anymore. That I can pause and articulate and use conversations, not shut things down because I don't have the tools to process and feel,
This
if that
matters
makes
for,
sense.
oh, it makes a lot of sense. It matters for our children. It matters for our team members. It matters for our clients, right? The ability to step back and process, like you're talking about, and then the ability to vulnerably share, right?
Yeah.
Where you're at. It empowers people to feel that sense of compassion for you, and realize that, okay, they don't think they're above everybody else. They're human. So I got four kiddos, and I'm twice divorced, and I've been single for, living by myself for a little more than 2 years, I believe, with quite a few stints in between like that. And so I was explaining to my children about probably 10 months ago, I was noticing a pattern with myself that I I don't do well with noise anymore. I'm used to having a very silent environment. And so I was like, kiddos, there's something called a hermit. Have you ever heard of that? Uh, and they're like, what? I was like, well, it's somebody who lives alone, and they kind of like are away from the world. And I was like, I kind of have those tendencies developing within me. And so I get triggered by noise sometimes, and I'm not mad at you. I'm just out of my environment, and it kind of freaks me out. And so we were walking on this path, and I said, here's what I want y'all to do with me. Obviously, I was really stressed that I wouldn't have been talking to him about this. I was like, I was really feeling it. And we're walking on the same path that on a routine basis. This is where I go for my tranquility. And it ain't happening with three kids, my three oldest. And so I said, let's play. We're going to play a game. We're going to try this. I said, I want everybody to walk as ninja as possible. No scuffs of the shoes, nothing, for 10 whole seconds, and just listen to what do you hear, right? And so it took us 3 tries, right, which I was buying myself 40 seconds of silence. And so we go through this experience, and then afterwards, I said, what did you hear? We're all calm, and everybody picks up. Somebody says the cars, somebody says the birds, somebody said something else, and the wind, and I was like, thank you. I was like, that's what I'm used to focusing on when you guys aren't here. And sometimes it's disrupting. So anyway, that process of talking to, whether it's our kids or our team or our clients, all the people around us, and sharing that, it's an important constant reminder, because we can get so caught up in everything that's going on. So then you've got integration. How does that work?
Integrate is accepting yourself, dropping the mask that you think you need to be, and actually accepting the whole of you with a W. And, I love, just to go back to what you said, you actually supported your needs
Oh yeah,
without trying to, you went about it in a way that you had to go, but you didn't blame them. You found a game to show what your needs were. And I have a story to go on the opposite of that. Because
mm,
like I said, I almost died almost 11 years ago now. So the twins were 4. And I learned meditation when they were 5, and I'm a solo parent. So when you learn meditation, they tell you to create a nice, soft, quiet spot.
you got 2 kids.
Yeah, I was like, that's not happening. So I had to take meditation on the couch. And as you know, when you're meditating, you want to try to control the environment.
Mm,
Yet what I learned is to regulate my nervous system, that it doesn't need to control, and that
exactly.
it's not being
I don't agree with
stolen.
wanting to control the environment. It's like I only control what I can control.
And our children are so magnetic to our nervous system to unearth the places that we don't want to do the work right now.
Well
Because
put.
I had the same thing the other day. Like, I took meditation on the couch so I could see when they were fighting, how it wanted to, like, stop the banter, stop. And it was like, come back to the breath, come back. So I did that warrior work. So I understand that space. And the other day, they've been back at school, so the house is quiet. Saturday came, I wanted to be productive, do some editing, do some voiceovers on some stuff. One's in the bathroom with his TikTok loud, the other one's screaming on his PlayStation, and inside me, it started bubbling. I just wanted it quiet. I wanted it quiet. I wanted quiet. Yet it was like I was going to start barking. This is my house. And it was like, breathe through it,
Yeah,
breathe, and let yourself go through. And I said, like, high five, Nat, because, maybe 2 years ago, you would have started yelling at them and telling them to quiet down, because you thought you superseded the environment, rather than feeling and seeing that, what, you're sharing space with other humans. So
mm,
articulate, if you really needed the silence, they would have respected that. Yet it's also their day off. Like, it's everybody's day off. So take your day off too. of
Mhm.
wanting to be productive and whatnot. So thank you for, really articulating and showing the listeners, like, to be a leader, you also have to explain your needs, yet that process is feeling, and like I just explained, the integration of accepting yourself and accepting where your triggers may be wanting to stop what the environment is, yet in that stopping, you may be humiliated by the actions you've taken because it goes against what you're trying to show up as. So really taking that moment of acceptance and really understanding yourself, understanding the triggers, understanding the messiness also.
Exactly. The ability to live in that present, in that moment, right, and keep that presence alive is so. I learned in a book called "Feelings Buried Alive Never Die" that namaste and aloha mean the same thing, and they both mean my soul honors your soul,
Mhm.
which is also interpreted as I am actually perfect the way I am. You are perfect the way you are, and change is perfect. And that you can also be the environment, right? So whether it's Man's Search for Happiness and the guy living in the prison and being able to create his holistic reality, like those elements are so important. And before we go into the releasing side of things, and talking about the release of it, the you talked about acceptance of the faults too, and like embracing that reality, like the whole, like it's not just the good side as much as it is everything. And to be able to do that and removing that sense of judgment while appreciating change, it's a really interesting recipe for people to say, like, how does that work? How does that work for me? It's that you're gonna, those you listen in, right, that's for you to figure out and see how that works for you. And if you're, I think if you're stressed and anxious, oh, that's another thing I want to say. People listening might hear like, oh, well, Jackson sounds like the perfect parent. Like I don't have the opportunity to parent my kids full time, right? So on one side, like I hold a very sacred space for marriage and for the unions that have been able to fight the tough times, because they are tough, and who are able to make it through the challenges of co-parenting and trying to love each other in spite of your difficulties and differences. I only get to parent every other weekend. And then during the summer, I have 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so the 2 weeks that are on, I have my struggles for sure. Oh, I get it is a much harder process. So the parents who are in it day in and day out, you have a bigger battle. When my kids were young, one of the things I'm so grateful that came to my mind was I began to realize I have this like fear or anger of music, of loud noises. And
Mhm.
so I bought a little vial that hung on my keychain, and I bought a bunch of earplugs. And so I would literally put the earplugs in when we were in the car with the kids,
Mhm.
or when I was going to be around the kids for a long time. I could still hear everything because I've got like super hearing, but it would calm the noise so that I wouldn't react
Mhm.
when the frequencies or the vibes were just so crushing for me that I like lose myself. So there are lots of things that we can do. Earplugs is the thing that saved my kids.
That's a lifesaver, I
Saved
tell
me.
you, because once you start having more self-awareness and you're more present, your sensitivity is heightened even more. And the things that wanna come up, yet you're still pushing it down. Like, for me, I'm an only child. So when the twins were having and they still have sibling rivalry, I couldn't comprehend this because I wanna be kumbaya, everybody's, in a joyful state, you should be thankful you have a
Yes.
sibling, and it's like, but logically, I knew as twins, they're fighting for my attention and fighting for I'm the better person and fighting for their identity, yet internally, I was going bonkers with that, like them fighting and wanting to interfere. And what happens when you interfere? You get hit in the face. And even one of the twins, one time I was like, I don't understand your relationship. And he looked at me and he's like, why do you need to understand it? It's not you. It's between me and him. It has nothing to do with you. And that was like, I don't want to hear that. Yet it's logically true.
Yes.
To embody that, I think I need to separate the villain and the victim and because our nervous system goes by feeling. It doesn't know past, present, or future. So I have some emotionally charged, painful experience from my childhood that when these sensations come up in my direct experience, it comes up in these feelings. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. This is how, and it's like, wait a minute. This is where the integration of what happened before isn't happening now. What is the stuff that's coming up inside you that's distorting what you are experiencing in the present moment with these children? And
Pure
that
wisdom.
takes a lot of practice
Yeah.
because it's going to heighten, and it's not to berate your sensitivity. It's to support it. So yeah, those earplugs, and they have, even those in silent earplugs now that take out the, you know, because the
Noise
frequency,
cancellation.
yeah, the frequencies can be so overwhelming that I'm hearing everything and I'm feeling everything from people's emotions. So when I'm in public settings, there's sometimes I'm just silent because I'm reading so much that it's overwhelming me. And
Yeah.
it's like, I don't want to go outside of myself. It's like, be present with you so that you aren't trying to fix other people and trying to listen to other people. You're listening to the guidance within yourself, yet also supporting yourself. Because when we were younger, we were told a lot of things that we experienced in life was an inconvenience. Yet now, as an adult, you want to support those needs and you want to be able to articulate and communicate what your needs are while still sharing space with others. And that is the work of a leadership, not just berating and telling people how the environment needs to be. It's how can I blossom in this environment and support my needs so that I'm not, projecting or shutting down.
It's amazing. I love how you said that the leadership is sharing the space too with the others. It's that's such great wisdom. So the last one, releasing. We're gonna wait. We'll come back to releasing. So for now, what are the 3 resources that you recommend for other visionary leaders who are on the same type of path where they're building something that truly matters to them? What's really helped you get to where you are?
The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. He is very direct with the nervous system and releasing and really letting go of the meaning the mind wants to make on everything, because that's what makes us trip up on a lot of things and not being able to be present. Um, the you know I love Dr. Shafali. She helped me to untether a lot of things within my parenting role, which then really shows you your inner child and your inner work. So anything with Dr. Shafali, you don't have to be a parent to really understand her work, but that's the way she presents it. And also Eckhart Tolle helped me to enter the space of the now and really just be present with, again, releasing that analytical meaning mind, so that you can be in the self. And those were the 3 people that I recommend to everybody. There are other resources that I have used, yet those ones created in such a simple term that it's not easy to apply. Yet if you do apply it, you will see the benefits of it.
I am so, so grateful that I am not in a spelling bee today and that Google is on my side. Those are great resources. We will pull them up. We'll be right back after the break and we'll dive into NatNat's vision. All right. Welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder and CEO of First Class Business. And I've got NatNat Bedard with me today. She is a healing expert, and we're going to be talking about transforming your reactions. In fact, if you're just joining us, you're definitely going to want to go back and see what we talked about earlier, because we already laid out 3 of the 4 components of a fantastic framework for making sure that we're getting the most out of ourselves in order to get the most out of our lives. So we'll bring her right back on. First, I'm going to go over a couple of resources that can be very helpful for each of you as visionaries. The first one is Brain Glue by James Bond. I've now kinged him with the title of he's got a license to feel. And he helps people tap into their feelings when it comes to marketing. This book by Jack Canfield sold 130 million copies of Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's very good at what he does. And Jack said, you would be an idiot as an entrepreneur not to buy James's book. That's how powerful this was. He's also mad that he didn't come up with the concept himself. I would go to Amazon, listen to the little audio clip. It will probably make you laugh out loud. The story he tells about learning how to move from logical marketing to move into emotions. It's a fun book. And he reminds me a little bit of the late and great Robin Williams. If you ever get the chance to meet and talk to James Bond, it's an absolute pleasure. Then there's another tool that just came across our radar, and it's called Ticker. Now I'm gonna tell you right now, I am not a financial advisor. That is not my strength. But when Sean Tepper came on the show the other day and presented himself as a leader, not only did he build this software in the SaaS program to be able to help beginners learn how to invest in the stock market, I don't worry too much about SaaS platforms because there's so many coming out. I look at what is the quality of the leader that is behind the SaaS platform and the team, and I was ultra impressed with what he's up to. And so I highly recommend if you're in the stock space and you like to look at trading or you like to look at investing. He doesn't condemn the trader route, but he does point out a really valuable and important statistic that there are no billionaires who day trade. There are lots of billionaires who understand how to invest long term. So this is not a get rich quick platform. This is about helping people understand how the process works and giving you the data and the science and the algorithms behind it to recognize what stocks may or may not be for you. Again, for me, not necessarily my thing, but what is my thing are phenomenal leaders like him and making sure those phenomenal leaders continue to lead the world, because that's how you know if something's really going to stand the test of time or not, is do they have great leadership. Then there's the Water Project. We are not affiliated in any way, shape, or form with the Water Project. But when I found out that there's millions of people who don't have access to clean drinking water, I began to internalize what it would be like. And I've never been without water. I've never really been truly thirsty. So this was something I had to then choose to step into. And it wasn't hard when I saw that these kids celebrate water like my kids celebrate Christmas Day. And when they don't have it, it was disturbing to me, like, golly, that's the stuff they have to drink. So it is certainly an emotionally triggering reality, but emotional triggers can lead us to some of the greatest transformations in our own lives. My hope is that you will take this opportunity to look and see, what are these communities going through? How can you help? If you can give $5 or $20, they will give you an update that that project actually came to fruition. How cool is that? And in addition, if you're in a position where financially you just can't help right now, my hope is that you meditate just for 1 minute on who you might be able to share this with, because you never know if that person will be able to donate 100,000 or tag somebody else in that process who can get involved. We can change the world if we work together on this. We've got 8 billion people to help in the world. So if there's a cause out there and you're like, Jackson, I wish you would talk about this cause instead, drop the cause in the comments. It's not a matter of like yours is better than mine, etc. It's a matter of getting us exposure. We might talk about the cause that you put on our radar on the show next, or also even contribute to it ourselves. Let's just dive in and help, though. Without further ado, NatNat Bedard, welcome back to Vision Pros Live.
Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate what you are doing with the platform and how intentional you are with what you want to bring out in the world and what you're creating. So thank you, Jackson, for that intention that you're growing, and you're growing a community which is needed in the world.
Huge. Thank you. Talk to me about that. What elements of intention really inspired you about this? Because visionaries listening in right now, one of the things I'm doing is what Michael Gerber talks about in that book, The E-Myth, and Gino Wickman talks about rocket fuel. And that is making sure that you meet with people one-on-one and you find out, why do they want to be involved? What do they see? What are their feelings? What do they like? What do they don't like? Right. That ability to just kind of get with the one person and figure that out, even if we are live. Right. I'm going to do the same thing behind the scenes, by the way. And ask, what else can we do better? What did you love about this? So this is awesome that you bring this up. Tell me about that. What intentionality really draws your attention?
I think it's really because I see people. That's been my gift. that I see the sincerity and I see where their interests are. And also I'm seeing how they're feeling in their emotions. What are they allowing to be transparent in there? And also seeing, okay, well, what matters to them? Like, is it only money that matters to them? Is it only the numbers? Is it only the quantity? Or are they, wanting to build community? Like
Mm,
whatever you choose, that's
that's
the
huge.
story that you want to choose. And that's fine. It's who do I want to align with? And I think more and more when you are intentional, you draw people that are intentional around you.
Yeah.
The ones that aren't, they cannot handle the light that you have. And they cannot show up with their mask
Yeah.
because they just get melted away in it. And then it also imparts to them, maybe there is a change I can get into. Maybe I'm going too superficial and there's more depth that I can go into life.
Oh
So
my
it's
goodness.
really being able to listen to people. I think where we like to talk a lot, it's like, no, you have to step back and listen because that's the fault of a lot of people. They trust in the words, they're not looking at the actions, and actions takes time
Yeah.
to really. I could tell you all kinds of stuff right now, Jackson, that I'm doing this and that and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Yet then when you start to see me, it's like, oh, that's not really matching up of what you're presenting to people.
Hmm.
Yet
Oh
you
goodness.
can feel it in our discussion right now where I'm revealing some things where it's like, "Oh, no." And I can see it and feel it in the way that you're revealing things that it's like, "No, this is an intentional life and that it's going in more depth of this." It's
Yeah.
not just in the superficial that we're led as a child to be very superficial, to get that career, to get those numbers, to get that
Survival
money, to get
instinct
that
too.
power. Yeah.
It's also very much survival instinct. Those you listen who are like eating this up, come and join us. Like that. Like I gotta say that right now. Like come in and join this process because you don't always have environments around you like that. And
Mm.
like for instance, I cannot be vulnerable with the world, like the entire world, and say, "Hey guys, I'm going on vacation. I'm gonna leave my front door unlocked." And and by the way, I have a stack of cash that's sitting in my closet on this shelf. Like if you can't do that. There's a healthy space that has to be created in order for vulnerability to be respected and to not be damaged. Yet, as you talk about, we kind of learn to hide all vulnerability. So to power down on your, like you inspired a really big thought on Sunday. I shared with a friend at church. I showed him something a message I had received, and he looks at me like, I said, just pray for me, man. And so he put his arm around me, and I was like, I got you. And he invited me over that night. So we're gonna play this game with the family. And before we start playing the game, he starts talking about his father, and his father passing away when he was 14, and I'm just listening. You know how this goes, Nat, right? I'm just diving fully in. He's not really anticipating that, and you can tell because he's starting to get a little bit teary-eyed, like maybe it might be that case, right? And I see the breath come and I'm like, okay, that's definitely it. And he is kind of like on the cusp of shutting the door on it, but he's also kind of continuing the conversation and just do a few very gentle questions, to allow him to go, and then next thing you know, he's like, I didn't mean to. He's like, I'm not, like meaning to go down that. I was like, it's okay to cry. I was like,
Yeah.
it's good. And then he let the tears flow for a little bit, and allowed himself to share an incredibly deep and wonderful story with me, an experience about his father. And then I was able to reciprocate. And part of it was perhaps a challenge of accepting his father's role in his life. And as he came to understand that my story was equally interesting, he then began to be able to foster, cultivate, and kind of appreciate some of what he went through with his dad. It was just a really good healing moment, right, for us
Yeah.
to be able to meet on that. And that type of, and we all have access to these powers, but we start with one push-up, right, and we build as we continue to grow. So visionaries, keep doing that. NatNat, you have extreme superpowers in this regard. What is your vision for the people that you serve?
I want to empower them to embrace their uniqueness. In a world where we're told to fit into boxes and into titles, we have pinched ourselves off from our uniqueness and really understanding what our gifts are internally and to accept our quirks. And that's what really brings the you and being yourself and not being the cookie cutter that everybody wants you to be, that you can actually embrace being you. And that's where I have the empowerment of, you know, accepting your uniqueness and cultivating that confidence in that, despite the winds of the world telling you you should be something different.
My most loyal of followers, right? Just kidding. But the people who've heard me on a number of these shows, they know that one of my greatest fears growing up, and one of the things I hated the most about myself, was my curly hair. And it wasn't until 34, 35, where for the first time in my life, thanks to inspiration by my son, I decided to let it grow. And it was one of the most painful, challenging, and awkward experiences of my life. And I was like, I'm stepping into this. We're going. We're going to make it happen. And JP Sears is also a phenomenal inspiration for doing just that. Yeah, everybody wants you to be the businessman with a short haircut. You know, everybody wants the Jackson they've always known. You know, and it's a very bold and fun process. So silly for a lot of people out there. Like, what? You know, why does that matter? But yeah, terrified me, freaking terrified me. So I
With
love that
warrior
you're
work.
helping people get it out, because so many of us are stuck in
Yeah.
something we don't even realize we're a prisoner to ourselves in. It's huge.
That's my name is Natalie, yet I have the nickname NatNat because my friend's son gave it to me. Her name is Natalie also. So he wasn't able to articulate the L's, so he just said NatNat, and we kept it. So when people would say Natalie, it wouldn't, it would differentiate both of us. And I kept it with the lift oneself work because you need play to regulate your nervous system. In a world that wants to be serious and stuffy, yeah, you can be productive, yet is there intention in that productivity? Is your energy in that creation? Or are you just doing what you're told to do? And it's really allowing curiosity to be unleashed in that. And I want to thank your son for allowing you to do that warrior work and for you to look at the mirror. Because how I define parenting, it's the highest spiritual practice you can learn about yourself. So what you went through was warrior work, and we get to
Yes.
benefit from it because the
Mhm.
lightness that you have, the
Yeah.
playfulness, and that you can just be you without the apprehension of what do they think? Do I look okay? Do I have this?
You
I'm
can't just
bad.
eliminate that, right? I go to a
Oh,
family reunion, my uncle sees me coming, he goes, "Ugly!" And my inner child freaked and panicked, you know. I was like, I wanted to crawl right back in and just cut my hair, and I was like, "Screw that." I was like,
yeah,
"No, it's not happening. I'm gonna go through I'm gonna be just fine." I was like, "He ain't gonna take this away from me." You know,
exactly.
like, and he wasn't trying to hurt me.
No,
He really wasn't. You know, as much as a hurtful word that is, that wasn't his intent or goal. But he can't see the inner fragile child. You know, he can't see that he literally just kicked that inner fragile child to the floor.
yeah.
But yes, it has been so empowering to do. Let's dive into another type of discussion that I believe is usually empowering, but it can also be something that's very dark. What is the worst leadership experience that you've ever had?
Having to see my past parenting.
Oh,
I think it's the most intimate part, and I have the twins that
oh
are
my gosh.
14 right now, yet my oldest is gonna be 30. The way I parented my 30-year-old compared to what I parent my 14-year-old, very different. So I've had to have radical, like, I get teary-eyed with this because I have to have radical compassion with myself for what I know now and not allow this awareness to berate the awareness of what that person was at the time and understand the trauma, understand that when you don't feel your emotions, you go into protection and not, erasing what happened, accepting and having accountability and atonement, apologizing for my part so that that could repair my oldest son. So he can see that it had nothing to do with you, even though you internalized it, that I must have did something wrong for my moods or my behaviors or my actions. And it's like, no, go back as whole. That was my stuff. It wasn't yours. And you were right in thinking it was my stuff at the beginning. So really doing that repair, and that's warrior work. And that's a real leader of not hiding. And when you're in this space of spirituality and healing, a lot of people want perfection. That, oh, you haven't done anything and you're just perfect. And it's like, what? No, the
Hmm.
reason why I can speak the way I do is because I lived a very colorful life and I'm
Yeah,
not hiding from it. And I'm giving you the Coles notes, that there's things that you can avoid not having to do if you're willing to engage and go into the depth of it.
that may be the best answer we've ever gotten for this question. That's that. Yeah, yeah, that's a hard one.
Yes.
We don't have enough time to dive into the depths of that the way that I want to. I hope that all of you that are listening in, if you feel it's a safe space, and you'd like to reveal something deep and similar, what is one of your own vulnerabilities out there? Like, what is one of those areas where you made mistakes, and you wish that you know you could learn to overcome those mistakes and embrace, as we talked about earlier, right? Integrate it, understand that you're not able to change it and you don't need to live with regret on it, but to be able to recognize what it is and then from there start working towards the resolution. Because all of us as parents, especially multi-parent, like you learn as you go and it gets a little bit easier as time goes on to understand how to help. And I'd say the same thing about both of my ex marriages. And it's like there's so many things that I can learn from those experiences if I don't hide by either putting it on them as though it was their fault, or justifying, my own good behaviors. There's so many opportunities to look at that and learn and say, ah, if I learn from this, I will improve my future relationships. So there's a lot of work that can be done there.
And just a little point so
Yeah.
people have some verbiage of what becomes a conflict is that you may have said that you would not be or do certain things as a child and you swore by it, not recognizing patterns develop. They just look a little different. Yet when you unravel them, they're the same thing. So
Mm,
some things that I swore I would never do, I redid in my parenting. And
yeah.
when you do the work, you see it for what it is. And that is difficult to integrate because you swore to yourself you would not do this.
Yeah.
You would not let this happen. And so
I'll give an example on
integrating,
that because sometimes it's hard to like see like, all right, where is that at? And tell me if I'm wrong in this example, but I think what you're talking about is when I was little, I became an uncle at the age of 9, and I wanted to be a dad after that. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be a dad. And so I started watching dads everywhere because my dad was out of the picture for the most part. I definitely want to be like him, but I also picked up some of the good traits there. But I remember being in church and seeing a guy like drag his kid out, like of the congregation because his kid was misbehaving. And I remember thinking like, I don't want to be like that dad. I'm not going to do that to my kids. And I remember seeing the other dad, pick his son up who's way more misbehaving, right? Go to the back of the room, set him down gently on his knee. And I can see him like whispering to his son. And I see his son starting to calm down and they're starting to understand each other. And they're back before you know it. You can still hear the other kid in the hallway, like screaming. And I was like, I want to be like that dad. I've been both dads. It depends on the circumstance, and what's going on. But I remember swearing I was never going to be like the dad who drags your kid out and like, sorry, kiddos, I've had my moments too. So is that what you're talking about with like setting the concession? Like, I'm not going to be that person.
yeah, I swore I wasn't going to not be married, or I actually I promised myself that I wouldn't be a parent. I didn't want to bring children into a world that felt so dark and that children weren't listened to and abused. And then I wanted to be a child psychologist, and I didn't go through that realm. So, as the universe would have it, well, you're going to be a parent. You're really going to understand that aspect. Yet, not having men present for my children and recreating that experience again because my father was absent was a detriment. And also some of the actions that I took that I swore I would never do, and I did. And just to give you another insight, like just to open it up, because I just dive deep, the father that you saw gently bring the son to the back of the room and whisper something, you have no idea if he may have whispered fearful things into his child, and that's why the behavior changed. Yet you looked at the mannerism that it looked so gentle. And
Yeah.
these are the things that we just assume certain things, but we don't know the depths of what's going on. Yet we create, what we want it to look and feel like. So it
Right.
felt like it was something. And yeah, the gentle parenting, it's great. Yet when you're in live action, it's not always applicable. You're not able to access the resources if you haven't felt your emotions. They're unsorting all the emotions in you, and you just want to project and shut down. So our children can bring out the nastiness in us if we haven't done our inner work. And even when you've done your inner work, life happens. Your capacity is short. So that's why it's called radical acceptance and accountability. Once
Yeah.
you recognize that you have gone too far into something, take accountability, have radical compassion for yourself, and do the repair.
Yeah. I love your potential perspective on that father, Sherlock Holmes. Because that's an important aspect, right? Is to have those comprehensive analysis skills. Um, I don't know if I was born with them. I don't think so. Maybe I was born, but I mean, I probably due to some survival realities early on, I began to assess very clearly and very deeply a lot of different realities that existed there. So, for the sake of the sacredness of the story, the kid, that child calming down, the smile on his face, the demeanor of the father, and seeing their interactions week after week.
Yeah.
Right, there's a lot of aspects there, and you still bring up a great point. I remember my sister coming home from an event and saying, like, talking so mad about, oh my gosh, the way she looked at me, and blah. And I remember going, how do you know she wasn't about to sneeze? Like just trying to hold it back. How do you know she was even looking at you? Were in a crowd of 50 people. She could be looking at anybody. Like, and that ability to take a step back for good, for the good and for the bad, and process it. Is such a very powerful, wise thing to do. What's the best leadership experience that you've ever had?
Admitting my faults as a leader for myself, again, in the parenting role.
Yeah.
And any leader that I've seen also is acknowledging the mistakes, not blaming, not hiding them, actually learning from them and bringing them forth to show what it looks like to be a leader. And that we don't just bury things and pretend like they didn't happen. We're going to use them as learning experiences. So that has always struck with me when I first saw it, as being a young child. One of my teachers brought it forth, and it was like back in
Mm.
the 70s, 80s, that wasn't, you didn't see that often. It was always, we do no wrong and we're perfect. Yet seeing that human side, that's where it was like, oh, you can be a leader like this. And it just developed, and that has been a significant part of me in my most important leadership role as a parent.
Yes.
I do lead when I have my clients and everything, but yet the most important one is with my children.
Huge. Those of you listening in, it is literally impossible to build a championship level culture, a functional team, without that process of being vulnerable. This right here behind me is an homage to Patrick Lencioni of the Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And the base of that pyramid is all about building trust. And how do you do that? Vulnerability. Being able to be vulnerable with people. And I love that in the book, he highlights the symptoms of the dysfunctional cultures and the functional cultures. It's required reading for everybody who comes into our environment of our team, because you can't take people who've never been part of a championship level culture and assume that they're automatically going to know what the behaviors are, what the communication is like. they have to learn that process. So if you want great results, you want great success, then consider starting to dive into, all right, well, how do you create safe vulnerability for those that you want to work with? And we, to double down on your point about family and about our children and all of that, our rally cry at First Class Business is we create a full appreciation for family and personal well-being within the workplace. And if more companies would do that, where it's like, okay, family's the most important, but get this done first, but make sure your kids don't show up, but make sure there's no buts. Family, well-being, it is the most important, period. And it should be. If this is the last chance, NatNat, that you had to share a lesson with anybody, this is it. What powerful lesson can other visionaries learn from your experience?
Learn to be kind to yourself and appreciate who you are in this moment and grow from there, not into what you think you ought to be in your worth. You're worthy right now. So that kindness helps to regulate that nervous system so that you're not harsh with yourself, that there can be an opening.
That is profoundly deep and centered around all things we stand for. We are out of time for today. I don't want to eat into all the things that you have going on in the rest of your life. Vision Pros, so as you're listening in, if you want to get in touch with NatNat and see what it would be like to work with her, follow her on social media, etc. Of course, below this video, you will see the action steps so that you can do just that. We'll also list all the resources down there as well. We invite you to connect with us. In the top right corner, you'll see a button as well that says Be Our Guest. If you want to come on the show and talk about your vision and how you're helping in the world, and it could be simply for your family, it could be in your local community, or I don't know, you could be Richard Branson helping the entire world. We're happy to have any of you on this stage that want to give back and want to help us learn these principles that will help us improve our lives. And before I wrap up, I'm going to let NatNat have the honors today. Anything else you want to share before we shut down?
I just want to let any listener, if there was any kind of tug or there was anything that you wanted to ask a question, reach out to me. I am open to answer any conversations. And, if there is a tug for healing, this is your indication that there was an opening in their safety. So come see me on my Instagram or come to my website, liftoneself.com, and let's start this community. I truly appreciate that you're here as a listener, because that means that you really want to be more intentional as that leadership and grow that community. So again, Jackson, thank you so much for what you are creating and cultivating in the world. It is so needed and it is so appreciated. So those that may not give you your high five and your roses and your cigars right now, let me be that person to show that appreciation. It is greatly appreciated.
I love it. Thank you so much. And those of you listening in, we followed the spirit and the flow of this conversation. We did not touch on releasing. So it's a perfect opportunity to reach out to NatNat and bridge that gap and make sure that we learn more about it. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building